Thank you for having me. Today I'm going to give a summary of the 7th IAA Planetary Defense Conference, which was held recently on the week of April 26th. And as we'll discuss today, it was held virtually, hosted online by United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs. Many of the folks who are present at this meeting today were probably also present at the PDC. So hopefully for most folks, this is just a bit of a refresher of something that is still relatively recent memory. I'll start off by summarizing the Planetary Defense Conference series to date. Thus far, we've held 9 PDCs, the first of which was held in 2004. And then beginning in 2007, they've been held in the odd-numbered years. So every other year on the odd-numbered years thereafter, with the PDC at the end of April this year being our most recent. The 10th PDC is currently planned for 2023 to be hosted in person at the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs in Vienna. We were originally going to do that this year for 2021, but of course, of the pandemic, we had to switch to a virtual format. For 2023, we're considering a hybrid format. So that's under discussion, and the dates are likely to be similar to the dates for this year, but are still also being finalized. I'd like to direct you all to a list of PDC resources online. As with all SBAG meetings, these presentation charts will be available online for people to download at, on their own after the meeting. So if there are things that you'd like to see from the PDC, if you weren't present there, this page here summarizes most of the links. So first we have the main conference website, but I also want to point out that the website listed below that gives the detailed agenda and program with clickable links to all of the sessions, as well as links to download each abstract, presentation file, manuscript, to access the video recordings of the presentations and so forth. All that information is on the second link that I give here. So if you're interested in looking at the technical content and the written material from the conference, that's the place to go. Also, we conducted a hypothetical asteroid impact scenario exercise at the conference, as we have in conferences past. And there I give the link on the CNEO's website where the proceedings of the exercise and all of the exercise materials are documented. I also want to point out that Lorian Wheeler is giving a talk immediately following mine, where she will go into the details of the hypothetical threat exercise and provide an excellent overview of it. So I highly recommend her talk, which is coming up next. Finally, you have recordings, links to all the recordings of each day of the PDC. These are on the YouTube channel, so they're very easy to access. The online conference was recorded each day, so all of the conference content is available online for people to watch after the fact. The conference was co-chaired by myself and my 4 co-chairs listed here: Bill Ehler, Gerhard Drolshagen, Alex Carl, and Nahum Melamed. Hosting was done online by UNOSA and their support colleagues. Particularly want to mention Romana Koffler and Peter Cran, who did an enormous amount of work along with their support staff to make the conference happen. On the first day of the conference, we had welcoming remarks and some important keynote addresses, remarks by Bill Ehler and Romana Koffler, as well as an overview of the International Academy of Astronautics by Jean-Michel Contant, Secretary General of the IAA. We also had some excellent keynote addresses by Simonetta De Pipo and Marius Piso. Overall, we had 909 registrants, including 273 students and 19 members of the press. We had almost exactly 699 attendees on WebEx throughout the 5-day conference. At any given moment in time, the total number of people connected was generally hovering between about 200 and 300. And the presentations were given by people representing 23 different countries. So here is sort of a visual representation of the countries from which the various WebEx logins were coming during the conference. Most of them were coming from the US, but there was notable participation from several other countries as well. Here we have an array of conference photographs. These were submitted, people were given the opportunity to submit photographs because of course we couldn't all gather in person to take a conference photo together as we would during an in-person conference. So some folks elected to send in a photograph. And so I've just assembled a little collage of those photos here. Here's a listing of the sessions that we had at the PDC. We had, on day one, we had sessions for several of the current and upcoming notable asteroid missions, including Hayabusa 2, OSIRIS-REx. We also had talks talking about the forthcoming DART mission launching later this year, as well as the Hera mission. The other sessions followed a lot of the usual technical areas that comprise planetary defense: NEO discovery, characterization, deflection and disruption, testing, mission and campaign design, impact effects, disaster management, the decision to act, public education and communication, as well as a session talking about Apophis and other opportunities for characterizing NEOs during future close approaches of the Earth. We also had some excellent panel sessions, as well as a very interesting and lively hypothetical threat exercise. Again, Lorian Wheeler is going to provide a good overview of the threat exercise in the talk following this one. But here I've highlighted the specific portions of the conference that were devoted to the threat exercise, as well as the panel sessions that were held intermixed with the regular technical sessions. And we were fortunate to have some excellent representation on these panels and some very lively and in-depth discussions of topics that probably received their best representation to date at this PDC, including legal matters, policy matters, disaster management, public communication and education, and lessons learned from past disasters. We also had a really interesting panel session proposing an International Year of Planetary Defense, which may wind up taking place during 2029, which of course is the year of the Apophis close approach to Earth. That is still being undertaken at the very early stages, so there's no concrete developments there, but there was an excellent discussion and a lot of support for that concept. The Planetary Society held a public event for us, as they have in years past. Earthlings versus asteroids, what's the score? And here we have a link to the YouTube video recording of the public event, during which several experts from the planetary defense community were interviewed. So I highly recommend that to any folks who weren't able to watch it live or haven't had the opportunity to watch it since the conference. The link is here on this page. I also want to call your attention to a fantastic planetary defense IMAX film by Phil Groves entitled Asteroid Hunters. The website and the trailer links are both given here on this page. We were fortunate to have special screenings of this film in the Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. areas on April 28th. And these were screenings held in conjunction with the PDC. And you can look for wider releases of this film in IMAX theaters starting this summer, but especially during the fall season. And I highly recommend this film. It's really well done, and it is really going to help us raise awareness of planetary defense activities. The conference received good media coverage. I've listed a few links here on this page to some of the articles that were written about the conference. There are certainly others out there. This is just a brief snapshot. And Lorian Wheeler also has a list of other articles in her talk. Again, I strongly encourage you to take a look at her material. Myself and the other conference chairs are in the process of authoring a conference report, which is still under construction. So be looking for that in the days to come. And just a few concluding remarks. Pivoting to a virtual format was challenging, but most of the feedback that we've received about how it was executed has been very positive. So we're very heartened by that. The polling results that were taken during the online conference suggest a lot of support for a hybrid format in 2023. That's also been discussed here at the SBAG, and that seems to be sort of a universal sentiment, which is good. I really want to reemphasize that we had excellent contributions and participation in the areas of legal and policy matters, disaster management, and space agency representatives. And all of that demonstrates a lot of increased awareness of and support of planetary defense activities. The advances in technical areas were excellent, as they generally have been in years past, and a great deal of important ongoing and future work was identified. We also saw multiple opportunities for expanding and strengthening planetary defense via ongoing and increased work in other interdisciplinary fields, including space law and policy, disaster management, education and communication, other areas within the social sciences, economics, and other areas. All of that's going to be summarized in the forthcoming report. But despite the varied nature of the information that we saw at the conference, a lot of which presented some interesting new results, all the findings continues to support a lot of the key maxims that we've been emphasizing ever since the field really was developed, which is to find them early and to be prepared. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. There is one question for you in the chat already. If you were to, how does the attendance at this year's PDC compare to previous years?
Sure, great question. So typically PDC attendance is kind of in the mid-200s for the in-person conferences in rough figures. So in terms of the instantaneous number of people logged in to the online conference at any given moment in time, that is comparable. But in terms of the number of registrations and the total number of people who attended at least one point in time or multiple points in time throughout the week of the conference, those numbers were much higher than typical. So again, we had over 900 registrations and nearly 700 unique attendees at the conference throughout the week. So, again, those are much higher than the, mid-200s numbers that we usually have for in-person attendance. And it really demonstrates the potential for wider reach from the, via the virtual platform. And so extending that concept suggests that we would, be able to enjoy that kind of reach along with all the many benefits of an in-person meeting by looking at a hybrid format. And that's why that's being considered.